Okay, then I would like to introduce our speaker, John McRae. John received a BS in horticulture from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He started working as a botanist at Six Rivers National Forest in 1995. And he was also actually our chapter president here for 2 years in the late 1990s. So he's going to tell us about the wonderful botanical areas on our local national forest. Let's welcome John McRae.
Thank you all. But before I get started, I put a box of these booklets on the back shelf there. They're called Stark Beauty, Climate, Siskiyou, Serpentine, Scott, cool pictures, cool text. And there's only 500 left back there. I got 12,000 back. So, okay, you know, I'm not crazy about giving presentations, but I really owe it to the North Coast chapter because they've worked closely with us and helped us a great deal. And in this slide presentation, I'll mention a number of people who are chapter members who, you know, have worked with us for years to get demographic monitoring done and provide comments to requests for comments from the public. Whenever we put out a project, we request comments from the public. And this chapter has been great, Dave Ember especially, in providing very astute comments on our projects. And the thing it does, you know, I kind of think management might get a little tired of talking about hearing from us botanists how important these plants are, but when the public speaks, they listen. So I really owe this to the chapter and to Carol. You know, Carol calls up, there's cows getting onto Horse Mountain, you know, there's people shooting target and throwing trash all over Horse Mountain. So you're our eyes and ears out there as well. So on the other thing, so I don't know if any of you saw the presentation I gave in December. We were all in COVID, and it was on 3 of these botanical areas: Horse Mountain, North Fork of the Smith, and the Lassix. And Carol recorded it, and I played it for my son, who's 18, to see what he think of it. You know, I would love for him to get interested in botany, but unfortunately, he's interested in molecular engineering. But so I played it for him. He says, "Well, it's a pretty good, Dad." But he said, "You said about 50 or 100 times." He said it was really unprofessional. And I'm sure that's going to happen here, and I don't know what I can do about it. I thought if it's so inadvertent, if I say somebody could say it could be like a audience participation thing. But so feel free to do that if you like. But I'm going to try not to say it. I wish I had electric shock device. So. But anyway, so this presentation was prepared mainly by Rosie Murphy-Deek, one of our botanists on Six Rivers. And now she's going to come up here and present. But anyway, so and this was probably billed as a presentation on our botanical areas. Oh, the power just went out. I'm presenting that as the special interest areas, all these botanical and geologic areas and culture areas are part of special interest area management strategy that Lisa Hoover prepared a number of years ago. So that's where the management direction comes from, is that strategy, which talks about issues and objectives and things like that. So moving forward here. Did anything happen?
Nope.
And I'll try the back arrow. Ooh, Caitlin made it work.
Which areas? The space bar? Oh, it's not. Well, that's not good. We can plug it.
Oh, there you go. So, and you're hitting it. Okay.
I just had to click the screen.
Oh. Keep hoping the thing's going to fail. I can get. Okay, so next, so here are the 7 SIA areas on forest. And 5 of them are botanical areas. 2 of them, Broken Rib Ecological Area and Bluff Creek Geologic Area, are not botanical areas, so I'm not going to cover them. But if you're interested, and I'll mention this throughout this, if you want to go to one of these areas, Carol wanted me to make sure I gave you directions, but the best thing is Google Maps. It's the best way to get anywhere, right? So, and I Google mapped Myrtle Creek, the first botanical area, and they also had a trail guide, printed trail guide for the trail at Myrtle Creek that has stations and stuff. So, but here are the 7 special interest areas on 6 rivers, and they total about 40,000 acres. The forest is 1 million acres. So that's less than 4% of the forest is being managed under this special interest area strategy. And then here are the 5 botanical areas, and this on the right are the number of species that we manage. Either we manage them as Forest Service sensitive species, where the goal is to prevent them from becoming so rare they're federal listing. We manage them as survey and managed species, which came out of the Northwest Forest Plan, where they had identified a bunch of species that there wasn't that much information out, and they thought they were old growth related. And they set up this survey and management program where they, pages of species that we would survey for, and if we found them, we would manage them where they were protected on sites. And the great thing about this is we didn't manage non-vasculars, but through this now we manage fungi, we manage lichens, and we manage bryophytes. And there's a rattling that might go away when we enter into the new planning regs. So, and I have no idea what the outcome of that's going to be. So there's 22 of these managed species are in the SIAs. They're also in the forest, but 22 of them are on here, and we manage 44 species. So half of the species we manage are in the SIAs. I was thinking I had a friend who used to drink beer when he went to the dentist. I thought about putting beer in there, but I didn't. Now, this is the Myrtle Creek Botanical and Cultural Area. And it's called a cultural area because it's the first place gold was profitably mined in Delaware County. So, but as a botanical area, it's known for its old growth redwood forest. It's one of the outside of the Karuk Forest, which is a redwood forest. It's disjunct from the forest. This is the only place in this area of the forest close to the coast where we have redwoods. I have a cheat sheet here to make sure I cover everything. And you could ask any questions at any time. So, and again, the best way to find out how to get to this, it's right off 199, right after Hyuchi, where the South Fork Road takes off. It's right on the other side of the street. But Google Maps is a much better way to get there. And then both of these photos were taken by Dana York, a chapter member. And here's the trail through Myrtle Creek. And on the right is a rare fern. Myrtle Creek is the only place this fern occurs in California, from what I understand. And it's Asplenium trichomanes subspecies trichomanes, and you see it's a list 2B because it's rare in California, but it's widespread in North America, Europe, and Asia. And we use global rankings when we're trying to determine what to put on our sensitive list. And the global rankings are developed by NatureServe, and it goes from 1 to 5, with 1 being the rarest, 5 being more common. And you can see this is a G5 T5. The T refers to the subspecies. So the Asplenium trichomanes is a G5. The subspecies trichomanes is a T5. And you're going to see a lot of cases where there's list 1Bs with the Native Plant Society, but we don't have them on the sensitive species list for reasons. So, and then here are three, two survey and manage and one forest sensitive lichen not found on forest. The one in the center was taken by Adrienne Kovasi, who's in the crowd here, it's a CNPS member. There she is over there, and a lichenologist. And we also have Tom Carlberg, you know, the renowned California lichenologist on our staff. So with that, so these are managed as the Ramalina thrausta is not survey and managed, it's managed as a sensitive species. And to get away from my G3 rule, it's a G5 question mark. The question mark shows a certain level of uncertainty, but it's not a G3. So, yeah. So now we'll move on to a Bear Basin Butte. And it's again, Google map it. It's a cool place to go to. And it's known for its rich conifer forest. It has 16 conifer species within an area of 500 hectares, which is pretty amazing. What else was I going to say about Horse Mountain? Anyway, I'll just move on. It's take forever. So one of the Port Orford cedar occurs in here, and Port Orford cedar is a real issue, especially up and down our county, because they call it quick decline. It kills trees very rapidly, and it's spread by spores that occur in water and mud. So during the wet season, we have gates where we close off that part of the forest, and they have these signs on them that people shoot up, or they tear the gates out. But that's just something to be aware of. Even in the summertime, if you're going through some mud or something, we carry a little tackle box in our car that has some disinfectant in it, a little tool for scraping the mud off our boots. And we wash the undercarriage of our car when we get down to the ranger station, just to get all that mud off so we don't spread this. And here's the Bear Basin Lookout, which you could rent. You could rent it between July 1st and September 30th. And has beautiful views of the Siskiyou Mountains to the east. And there's a cabin there, the Pearson Cabinet, and you could easily sleep, I don't know, 4 or 6 or 10 people in there probably. But but you have to make a reservation at recreation.gov, and it's good to do a year in advance. It's highly sought after. It would be interesting to go there now to see if you could even get a reservation for this summer. And here's a sensitive plant that we have there, and it's called Mount Eddie-Draba, and it grows up on the Siskiyou Crest in the granitics. And a couple of years ago, we tried to get there. I've never seen this. I think this is the only plant we manage I've never seen. We tried to get up there, and we ran out of time. It's on Bear Mountain, and you get up to the edge of one place in Bear Mountain where it looked too sheer to negotiate. But this spring, we're going to try it again, right, Tom? We're going to try to get up there. See if it's still there. We try to visit each one of our managed species sites once every 10 years. So we have a running list that we're behind on, but it's the best part of the job, get out in the field looking for rare plants. Here's 3 more species that occur there. One is Rubus nivalis, is a rare blackberry, believe it or not. It's called the shining leaf blackberry. There's only 3 sites of it in California. And one of them is in Bear Basin Butte. And what's diagnostic about it is it has runners that root at the node, as well as a shining leaf. And here's Prosartes parvifolia, which I got to looking at this tonight, and it shows it has G5T2. And I'm thinking, it doesn't have a variety or a subspecies. Why does it have a T2 on it? So I looked into it, and it was originally described in 1880 by Serrano Watson. And he called it Prosartes hookeri, subspecies parvifolia. But then somebody said, no, wait a minute, this is just Prosartes hookeri. It's really not that much different. So they subsumed it, and the taxa disappeared. But then Robin Bensi and Mike Messler did a study and showed that it is indeed different than hookeri. And they resurrected it as Prosartes parvifolia. apparently nobody's corrected the G ranking. And then I threw in this picture of, because I should say Rosie threw in this picture. We had some space, and there's Lewissia coddley and a variety coddley, you know, is kind of common up there. They sell that at Pearson's, by the way. And then here's Cantharella subalbidus, a survey and manage fungi that grows up in that neck of the woods. And like I said, if it hadn't been for the Northwest Forest Plan, there would be no survey and manage. And, you know, we wouldn't be.
How do you manage fungi?
We hire a mycologist to do the survey work.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
mostly it's surveying more than, because what kinds of things would you be able to do to manage fungi?
That's a good question. You know, we, you know, there's a mycelium mats can be pretty extensive, and there's some, you know, even a high intensity fire, they find that the mycelium mats are appearing fairly quickly. So, but to manage him, you know, he goes out and he finds them because he knows the habitat characteristics and he knows the weather well enough to go out. Scott Davidson. He finds it, he gets coordinates, and then we buffer those coordinates if they're going to propose a project, you know, in that area, and the buffer should be fairly good size, you know. So that's kind of. Yeah, some inside of our buffer trees reside. And now this is a great picture. This is Cytinium revalli that used to be Leptogium revalli, and it's a survey and managed lichen, and grows on the poles of trees, right, Tom? And is it in canopy too?
Now, this one likes to be here, all of
Oh,
that. Critical.
really?
Yeah.
Shows you how much I know about lichens. But this photo was taken by Bruce McEwen, who gave a talk here, a great talk just before Christmas in Science B. I don't know how many of you saw that. And then this is our only bryophyte moss that we manage, Telidium californicum. And this picture is probably blown up, I don't know, 20 or 30 times. I need a 12-power hand lens when we're surveying for it, you know, so you see a lot of things, and this grows on the boles of trees. You see a lot of things you'd never see if you hadn't looked at a tree bowl with a hand lens. Now, moving on, I don't know how I'm doing time-wise, but it seems like I'm going kind of fast. Here's the Horse Mountain Botanical Area, which a lot of you have been to. It's the closest botanical area to Arcata. You could get there in 45 minutes, even if you drive slow. But because it's so close to town, it's the most visited, and it's also the most trashed by people who, you know, they cut Christmas trees there when they're not supposed to. We just had to put up a news. They steal our botanical area signs. So, and here's again, porphyrin cedar root disease is an issue, the spread of it. This is kind of a disjunct population of porphyrin cedar. The next group are a little bit disjunct, and so far I don't think there's any porphyrin cedar root disease up at Horse Mountain. So, and the other big issue that most of us are aware of is the target shooting and the trash these target shooters leave up there. So we had a meeting and showed the district ranger, Nolan Cogrove, those pictures as trash. And we brought this up before. Carol has phoned him up, brought this, but he finally relented. He said, let's do a closure order and prohibit shooting up at Horse Mountain. So this is a proposal. These roads, these roads are buffered by 300 feet either side of the road. So it would take care of most of that area. It's going to, it's not an easy thing to get a closure order. I think all of our closure order have been temporary fire closures. You know, we get a fire, they get a closure order so people aren't driving around the fire. But this is, I think this is the first time our forest has had a closure order that wasn't associated with a fire.
Do you think there's also gonna be money for cleanup? Because I think there's so much trash that it makes people think it's still around.
Right.
So it would be good to have a clue to.
And Lisa's been involved in trash cleanup, and you know, it's, you know, we have our own vehicles, we have people who get paid anyway. We could get people up and we don't have to do a contract or agreement to get that stuff picked up, so.
Sounds like a good team building.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, we'll try to get the hydrologist. And then, and here's a map that I think Lisa and Carol produced, and it shows some proposed trails, non-motorized trails that the chapter is proposing up in Horse Mountain. And there's a loop here that I believe this is where there's a shooting range right now. The idea is to, there's this old road, is to have this formally designated as a non-motorized trail, and it will create this loop here. But we gotta get people to stop shooting here before we can make this the intersection of the trail.
Is the closure order already in effect, or when is it supposed to be in effect?
It's not in effect. We still have to do the legwork and do the documentation, and it has to go through OGC, the Office of General Counsel, there's this big legal aspect to it. Plus, we have to scope the public. We're proposing to close this area. So you all will be integral in getting this thing approved, because the people who do the shooting are going to write in and say, man, I've been doing this all my life, And here's another likelihood that was recently found in July 2022 by Sarah Conway Novell, who's sitting right there, and and Sarah's doing kind of a lichen inventory up in Horse Mountain. She's psyched by lichens.
Yeah.
And we're proposing this to be added to the Forest Service sensitive list. For the longest time, we had no sensitive species up at Horse Mountain. So now we're starting to get a few going. And here's another one. This was just added to the list a couple of years ago. And this is Erianthes trinidadiensis. I can't remember the common name. What is it called? Pink margin monkey flower. And this is an annual. We only have 2 annuals that we manage. This and this other plant that is up at Horse Mountain. And this is growing in the edge of the road. And when they had the what is it called? The lightning complex that burned right up to Willow Creek, they decided to build a fuel break, a contingency line, they call them, up on the top of South Fork, on South Fork Mountain following Route 1. And they clipped the top of the botanical area, and they ran a cap down the road that edge this grows on. And Carol phoned me up and he said, John, they run a cap right down where the pink margin monkey flower grows. And I said, well, that's shits. But what we're going to do is go up there in the spring and monitor it. It's an annual, so it probably had already gone to seed when they ran the dozer down. It's disturbance tolerant, because for a while we weren't finding any of it off roads. So we'll monitor and see how it went. And when we first went up and saw it, we had what do they call it? Rare plant treasure hunt. Rare plant treasure hunt. See, there's Lisa and me in there and Carol, and I don't know who these other people are. You're probably sitting. We went up, and it was a great one, because we didn't have to drive for 2 hours, and we found the Erianthes, and it was a great day. And it's just, so here's 3 flowering plants. Carol said John put a lot of flowers in the picture. So here's the serpentine arnica and the Washington lily and the pale yellow stonecrop, which used to be on the sensitive list, but it's not that uncommon. Oh, and then I was up at the airport just before Christmas. My son was flying up from San Diego. He's going to UC San Diego. And I'm looking around, and here's a painting done by Jim McVicker of Horse Mountain. So I sent an email to Jim McVicker. Well, I don't know. I just sent him an email. I said, hey, Jim, I'm doing this presentation on Horse Mountain. Could I put this in my presentation to show people it's more than just, wildflowers and rare plants. Those landscapes are spectacular and they're inspiring. So he sent me this. He sent me a little, $300K. file. So I wish I could afford this painting, but at least I got that small image he sent me. It's beautiful. If you're at the airport, go see it. It's in the baggage claim area. And then here's the Lassex Botanic Area, you know, where the chapter has helped us tremendously, where we spent a lot of time. In fact, this area here, keep in mind this area right here, there's a road that goes right through here. So I'm going to show you a slide of where CAL FIRE contingency line over 100 feet wide at the edge of the botanical area. So it's a botanical and geological area. You know, it's a geological area because of this serpentine moonscape, you know, which is pretty unique. Black Lassic looks like volcanic, but it's sedimentary rock. You know, the primary forest cover in there is Jeffrey pine. Now here's the Lassex lupin, which went into the Federal Register about a month ago. It's proposed to be federally listed. And has anybody heard? Is it listed now? I was hoping Dave Emperor would be here. He would know. He took this picture. So it's either on the verge or is now federally listed. It becomes our second federally listed plant on forest. And to get a plant federally listed these days is not an easy task. It's a G1. The rarest. And here, as usual, you know, every botanical area has its threats. The Lassex, there is an old road system in there. It's kind of hunters roads, jeep roads, and we've tried to block as many off as we can with rocks, but people occasionally get up there. So that's a problem. Then this Bromus tectorum on the upper right there, that came in after the 2015 Lassex fire. And it's kind of shocking how much of it came in. And then in the bottom left, you get an idea of some of the shrub and tree encroachment is becoming a problem up there. And we hope to deal with that when we get this fire and fuels EA we're working on will allow us to do some tree removal and shrub removal. And I should have pointed out that everything west of the Forest Service road is in the wilderness up there. So, but that won't stop us. So, and here on the bottom right is a vernal pool that's up at Red Lassic that is just trashed by cows every year. You can see the damage done. And then this year, somebody dug a hole during deer season, you know, I guess so they could draw deer. So I don't think any deer would ever drink what was in there. And then, here's the contingency line I mentioned. This is a good 2 miles away from it was built during the August 2020 fire complex. And it's, you know, it's extremely wide and they're trying to remediate it as best they can. They didn't touch any of the known sites of plants we manage. However, the similar thing happened up on the Gordon fire several years ago, where they built a safety zone right over the top of one of our sensitive plants, and we lost an occurrence. And it was a CAL FIRE again. And the problem is the Forest Service is not doing a good job of regulating or monitoring these people when they're out on a piece of equipment, you know, tearing up ground. So we gotta get better at that. And here's Dan Barton, the wildlife chair of a Humboldt. He set up a bunch of game cameras and he got this picture of a cow. And right here is the Lassex lupin. And there's it's a wonder we don't see cow pies where the lupins are. And you know, grazing is not permitted there. That allotment is vacant. This is cattle trespass, which is a hard thing to control, you know. So what are you doing to rescue the lupin? This is from Monty Python. And this guy would steal lupins from the rich and give them to the poor. But that's not how we're managing the lupins. We're trying something a little different. So up here on the upper left, you see Dave Emperor with his data loggers. He's been investigating the ecology of the lupin and their habitat for a long time. He's generated numerous reports. He was instrumental in preparing the state listing document. here next in the middle is Lisa Hoover and Sydney Carruthers, who've done a tremendous amount of work up here. Lisa did the conservation strategy for the Lassex lupin. And on the bottom, here's Tom Carver, who's sitting back there, and me. And this is Jenny Hut. Pointing at the screen. This is Jenny. With the Fish and Wildlife Service. So, and then we've also been trying, and is Chris here?
No.
Yeah, she's been helping us. We tried 2 years now. We're trying to grow them from seed to create seed, to bulk up the seed to be used for seed banking and to augment the seed bank up at the Lassex. But we're having problems. We're going to try it again next year. Every year we think we learned something a little bit new. And we're hoping that we're going to get some, Caitlin, we're going to get some soil samples from each of the sites and send them, have PCRs run, have them bulk up the genetic material and see if we can find if there's any arbuscular mycorrhiza, because if there is, then we can inoculate planting mix and hopefully have better success. Something's missing. Oh, and here's other cool habitats. This here is a fairy shrimp. This vernal pool that the cows trash every year and that dries up for about a third of the year has fairy shrimp in it. I'm shocked every time I see them. God, what would be odd is if we remove the cows and the fairy shrimp disappeared. But that and then here's Ode to Carol. Here's some beautiful plants that grow up on the Lassex. You know, there's Allium campanulatum, Fritillaria glauca, and Fritillaria recurva. And I probably should have done a whole nother slide at some of the plants that occur up in this neck of the woods, because there's a lot of beautiful plants. And then this is just another slide showing you this moonscape, these serpentine barrens, you know, that are not nutrient rich. And the Jeffrey pine forest in the background. Yeah. 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 God, I think it was 2006, Lisa, is that right? Yeah, it's been many years, and Sydney Carruthers, you know, was doing it more than once a year, you know, and it's labor intensive, it's tedious. You stretch out tapes to get coordinates, you know, when you count seedlings, vegetative, adult plants. And then for a while we were trying to track plants from year to year, and it became a really laborious process. So, but our partners with you all did it. You know, we never did it ourselves. So I'm on this slide. So this is another Forest Service sensitive plant. It's the Lassex sandwort, and it's also G1. So it's interesting, and it's within spitting distance of the Lassex lupins. So you have two G1 plants growing extremely close proximity. They're very close together. And we have to, you know, we really have to be careful when we're doing this monitoring. There are threats to this plant. And when you're out there, it's hard to see the seedlings. It's inevitable you're going to step on one. So, you know, we're putting a little bit of pressure on this population by going out and doing this very intensive monitoring. And I should mention, we also cage the plants. Every year we put cage out on the reproductive plants because small mammals are preying on the seeds. So that's another big effort that the chapter has helped us with. You got to cage them and uncage them. So you're out in the wilderness and you look around, you see all this chicken wire covering the sun. It looks terrible. And then here, this is Aniscocarpus scabridus, and it grows on the steep talus slopes of Black Lassex. And you don't want to go out and look at this plant because it's dangerous. Their slopes are very steep. It's like walking on marbles on a 70% slope. But it's one of our sensitive plants. It's a very rare plant. Now we're North Fork of the Smith Botanical Area. It's our biggest botanical area. It's like 20,000 acres. So with 40,000 of all the SIAs, this is half of the acreage is in this area here. Because of the unique geological substrate, there's a lot of endemism, a lot of rare plants that only grow on serpentine. And if you remember the table before, it showed the most managed plants were on this, in this area, which was 9. But there's still a lot of other plants up there that even though they're not sensitive, they're rare, you know, they're list 2s and 3s, and it's an amazing place. It's easy to get to too. County Road goes right up to it. And it's probably on Google Maps. And again, you know, the threats are a little bit different here. It's unmanaged OHV use in these areas. This area was honeycombed by mining, exploratory mining roads. And those roads are open. People are driving on them. Fortunately, it's that far enough off the beaten track. There's not a whole lot of it going on, but there is a group that comes out of Oregon on the McGrew Road on Father's Day and stay at Sourdough Camp. And they tend to go off on these roads. And you can see that in this middle one, there's wheel tracks right through Ariaga and Pendulum, which is a list 1B plant. And then you see the irate botanist on the right. And you know, some people will say, well, there's so much rock, surface rock in these serpentine areas that you're not going to get much erosion. But there are areas that are high clay content, like you see on the right here, and you see a lot of damage. And that takes a long time to cure. And here's on the bottom left is some of the exploratory mining that went on in this area. And this was in the 70s, I believe, Lisa, when they were doing this. And because of these nutrient poor soils, it takes forever for them to recover. You know, it's maybe never. And what happened though is they made Congress designated this area up on Del Norte County as a Smith River National Recreation Area. And when they did that, it really limited the amount of mining that could occur up there. So that was a good thing. Congress did something good. And again, and here it's, you know, it's Port Orford country. So Port Orford root disease is an issue. So, you know, again, I wouldn't go out there in winter time. You know, I'd wait till a nice, warm, hot, sunny day.
And what is it that causes the root disease?
It's a spore. It's a spirochete. Lisa. Yeah, it's a mobile spore. It has a tail, which puts it in some case a different kingdom, perhaps. It's microscopic organism. Am I getting too far away from reality? Oh, water mold, okay. It's swimming around, yeah.
It's still in, it's kingdom water mold is still being by this.
So there's a tremendous amount of knowledge in this room. I'm surprised nobody's nailed me yet. I'm saying something. And here it is just a landscape view of the North Fork of the Smith, and it shows you the patchiness, the mosaic of bare spots and shrubs and trees, and it's in a lot of these balds, these serpentine barrens, where we're finding these, you know, the Erebus McDonaldianas and then Botura colorized and all these other rare plants that we're managing. This is a view looking, this is that's high plateau mountains. So this is looking east shortly after the 2002 Biscuit fire, you know, which burned extensively throughout this area. But I don't know that it, you know, I think the vascular plants fared fairly well. I don't know the non-vasculars, how well they did. You know, you burn up a tree and it's got a, you know, non-vascular lichen or something growing on it. It's toast. But for the most part, the vascular plants are herbaceous perennials that arise from an underground root or core, so they can tolerate a certain amount of level fire. Oh, and then here's our McDonald's rock cress. For years, this was our only federally listed plant. And it grows in these rock crevices, so it's somewhat protected. They bloom like earlier in the spring in May, and we only survey them for them when they're in bloom, because once you lose the flowers, you can't see them. The rosettes are just the size of a quarter. So. To G2. I would have thought it would be a G1, but I guess it's not. And here's Bochara kohlrabi, which used to be Arabis kohlrabi stipitata, and you see it grows in a very similar habitat, foliary crevices and whatnot, but I've never seen them growing near one another. And this is another one of our sensitive plants, Howell's jewel flower, and it grows in these exploratory mining roads, and it's really vulnerable to OHV traffic. When we survey for, we're more apt to see, for some reason, we don't see many mature flowering or fruiting plants. Normally we see this, as this is what we look for. And there is a rub that browses on the plant. I didn't even realize this was in the slide. Too bad Sydney Carruthers isn't here. She could give you the story on that larva, whatever it is. And here is the Mendocino gentian, which grows in serpentine wetlands along with Darlingtonia. And I can only assume it was originally described in Mendocino, because it's funny to run into Mendocino gentian way up in Northern California. And here's the other serpentine wetland plant, the Western bog violet, that grows in association with the Darlingtonia. And we entered into a conservation strategy with Rogue Siskiyou National Forest and Medford BLM to manage these rare serpentine wetland plants. There's about 3 more species, but they're up in Oregon in that conservation strategy. And then this is Lewissia oppositely Lewissia. It's on our sensitive plant list, even though it's a G4, and it grows in these flat pebble plains up like on Pine Flat Mountain and in other places. And sometimes when we're monitoring them early in the spring, they're under water, because these flat things seem to be in basins, and a lot of the plants will be underwater blooming. It's kind of odd, but they disappear quickly from the landscape. By come June or July, they're all shriveled up. I don't know if that's a fire adaptation or what, although there's no shrubs around it. And then this is Silene serpentinicola. It's a forest sensitive plant, and it was described by Tom Nelson, who used to be a chapter member. And Tom also described the Lasix lupin and the Lasix sandwort. And he did his master's thesis on the Lasix flora. And I think he found something like 460 species and 60 families. So he was a funny guy. I mean that as a compliment. He's a nice guy, very nice man. And now there's the serpentine wetland plants. There's a house plant of rosies. And so here's we have 3 carnivorous plants. This is the horned butterwort. It has sticky leaves from sticky glands, and the insects get stuck on it and dissolve. And I'm not sure this is quite right, but I've heard that because these soils are so saturated, cation exchange is inhibited. So these plants need to get nutrients in some other way. But it's amazing. I don't see that many bugs on these plants to think that they're actually surviving on it. But maybe one bug goes a long way. I don't know. And here's sundew, same thing, sticky glands, just trap an insect and dissolve it. And again, in wetland habitats. And lastly, here's your chapter mascot, the Darlingtonia. Yeah, eating bugs. So that's it. Anybody have any questions? In the back. No, you.
Thank you for acknowledging Tom Nelson, who got the last six from the map, but also beyond Tom Nelson, Bob Warner
Bob Warner.
did the four, he was active in city press for years, again, back to Tom. Tom's point about the local traffic in helping with the natural forest, but Bob did the four on the last six back in the '80s, and so he worked at, so the village, right?
We definitely, it's all these personalities, you know, all these people who are united by plants.
There's some.
Oh, geez. Sorry, presentation.
So I wanted them to be able to see him.
So Andrea, can you relay the questions that are on chat?
I didn't have any questions on chat, but I did have one comment. She wanted to see more Del Norte plants, but she left the talk before she could see them, so.
My standard answer, Google North Forest Smith Botanical Area on Google Maps and head on up there. You know, you'll see a lot, and there's probably a species list you could find online. I know we have one. If I had her email address, I'd send her species list for.
Yeah, there's also that Forest Service station in Gasky where you could get trail maps and the beautiful botanical trail up there.
And they're hiring a permanent botanist in Gasky. So believe it or not, so they should be coming on probably in 4 or 6 months, or how long it takes them to do that.
No, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, there's a question. Future questions.
Oh, it's do that again. Click on the chat. There you go.
You know, we don't, but I see that there are people in our regional office. They have kind of a drone program. It'll be years before it arrives in our on our doorstep. I suppose I could buy a drone, you know, but yeah, it's a good idea, especially, you know, the Erebus Victoriana, you float down the North Fork of the Smith River, and it occurs in that inner gorge along there. And one of the fellows who used to work there used to bring binoculars and use binoculars to see it. But I think for steep outcrops, that would be great.
That's, yeah, exactly, especially.
Inaccessible. Plus it'd be fun. Do I have to hide when you're?
So there was another question, yes.
Oh, yeah, it's, you have like a personal trail or some suggestion for me to be botanical plants? I know that there's multiple trails.
Yeah. I do, am probably partial to, I hate to direct anybody up to the Lassix because the traffic there is bad for the Lassix, but I'm partial to the North Fork, the Smith. And trying to think, there's really not a whole lot of trails up there, but
Stony Creek.
oh, Stony Creek, thank you. That's right, Stony Creek, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we just have to fill out some form. So if they hurt himself, there's no liability issue. But in fact, when we did the rare plant treasure hunt, all the people who were in that slide filled out a volunteer form, and they were volunteers. And in some cases, you could even get a stipend, like $17, you know, for the entire day. So we do that, but we do it very rarely. You know, and now I should mention, you know, for the longest time, we had 2 permanent botanists, Lisa and I on forest, and 2 temporary botanists. So there were 4 of us. Now there's 4, but we're hiring 2 more temporary botanists. They've hired a permanent botanist out of Lower Trinity, and they're hiring another one at Bagaski. So all of a sudden, I don't know, like if they had a wow moment or something and realized they needed more botanists, but things have picked up. It seems to be more respect for what we do.
And I think the coordination of the rare plant, and point was brought up before, we actually had a cleanup of the rare plant treasure hunt with fire. Take all this refrigerators, this is working on and all that stuff, so I think possible getting the rare plant treasure hunt back in action for some of the botanical areas with the local CPS, and then have that big fire folks come and get all the trash. Not just at Horse Mountain, but other areas would be.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the point. If you see trash, you go, oh, here's a place I can put my refrigerator now. And John, I don't know whether, the folks have had, sorry, this is on the recreational team, if there is any negative experiences anyone's had. But it's gonna be some kind of thing. Add to the data conflict of people visiting an area for botanical, but also being affected by.
Yeah, I should have put my email and my phone number on here. So I'll send to Carol an email. She probably has access to your
Yeah,
emails and stuff.
Yeah.
Provide that. Yeah, probably me and Carol. Carol has more clout than I do.
But, yeah, even if Cold Spring is not part of the botanical area, but you just mentioned how there's what cows live, right, in the last 7 years or so, they've cut so many oaks out of that area, and you know, I've just told the people that I know, but I never know who's the right person to do that, and I don't understand why they would let the ranchers who are allowed to have their cows there cut the oaks out of the totally encroached woodlands where you want to cut a ton of stuff.
Especially if they're on the forest federal lands.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, in the pictures, yeah.
So it's the cattle.
Yes.
So. Sure.
Forest needs a fence out state. That's a problem, so it's on the forest.
But it's helpful. It's not going to, they have responsibility. It's your responsibility to put on the fence. Yeah, they should. The cow management, it's a big issue. And we get very little money for it. But the other side of the coin is too, I'm messing these permit holders. This one blue bill side was a really nice little man, got big Trump stick for him. He's a really nice guy, he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to get his cows out. But you know what they do? He releases his cows on the bamboo in the spring, goes home, comes back in the fall, and before they're good. Serious.
Oh, yeah, it's, I don't know if it's botanical, but you mentioned briefly the Phytophthora, that's border with cedar. And there's a laminated root rot that, I think that bird gets into the roots, that's of the same, I think it's a Phytophthora, I don't know if it's the same one or just something.
Oh, yeah, okay,
It's another one.
yeah, and I know there's a flight chopper that affects that. Species, flight chopper, it's absolutely.
Here are many species and protect and nursery. Nine nurseries in the state, take special effort in trying to keep their stuff clean. People, if there's a danger, the last 15 or 20 years, of nursery stock being used for revegetation, moving Phytophthora into the habitat. So, since we're aware of this as a threat, managing at least native plant nurseries are in their operations. I don't know what the actual certification is. You can inquire with state CMPS. And they'll give you that information, but there's no reuse of soil. Okay, soil is sterilized. There's no reuse of pots. The pots have to be sterilized. To enter the nursery, usually you have to walk over these pads that are saturated with a bleach solution as a way of cleaning your shoes. Of course, if there's dirt on your shoes. So, but I can't answer your question about certification.
And I've been up to the farm several times, and you walk through and you said, Scotch group. And I asked him, I said, are you aware of what a problem this is out in violence, spread of this stuff? And they said, oh, we'll get rid of it. And the next time you want it.
Because there were statewide efforts to get nurseries certified. I'm sorry, I can't give you more specific information. Even though I was working last week on a website that provided references. Yeah, I do this blindly, but if you bother me to the meeting, we can check out on my phone and we can find out what a link to that site is. We can get all the information in.
Okay, I think we need to close the meeting down, and thank you again, John. And please, everyone.